We're going to be starting the reading in about 5 minutes. So I'm saying this for people in YouTube land as well. So there we go. All right, we are going to get started. So if you want to make your way to the seats, I just want to make you aware you can purchase Milt's book and Gala's. Oh God, why am I doing this? See, this is when you are the tech person as well as the MC. That's what happens. Anyway, there are free books over there, compliments of the Great Lakes Poetry Festival, Peter White Public Library. All those books on that table are free for the taking, and please take as much. I'm having a box sale today, so if you want a box of them, I've got a box. You can just fill it up and take it home with you. The only rule is you can't bring them back. All right. So, welcome to this wonderful, wonderful evening of poetry with two of my favorite poet friends, Milton Bates and Gala Mahlerbe. I'm going to thank the Friends of Peter White Public Library for all the equipment that we use to do our live streaming from. We couldn't do so much of what we do here at the library without the help of the Friends. So they are a wonderful, wonderful group of people. So I'm going to make you aware of things that are coming up very quickly. It's amazing how quickly it's coming up. So the full week of the Great Lakes Poetry Festival starts next Monday. Next Monday, we have the Women of Harvard Square Press Night. That's on Monday, April 21st, right here in the community room at 6:30 p.m. And we have several poets who have published or will be publishing collections of poetry with Harvard Square Press and are going to be reading that night. And our MC that night is going to be Ronnie Ferguson, who is the publisher and editor, one of the editors at Harvard Square Press. So I'm looking forward to just sitting back and letting somebody else run the show for a little bit. So Ronnie is a great, great friend and a great poetic advocate here in Marquette and in the UP. So that's the first night, the Women of Harvard Square Press. And then Tuesday night, Earth Day, April 22nd, we have our headline poet, and that is Kimberly Blazer. Kimberly is a former poet laureate of the state of Wisconsin. She is an Anishinaabe poet and writer, and she's published 6 poetry collections. Wonderful, wonderful person, and she's really excited to be here with us in the UP for that night and that event. And then on Wednesday night, this is new. We haven't done this yet for the Great Lakes Poetry Festival, but we're going to have a dinner and a movie night. And that means that you can bring your dinner. Sorry, I'm not providing dinner unless you want to eat popcorn for dinner. I can do that. But yes, we'll have tables set up. You can bring your dinner, sit down at one of those tables, and watch this wonderful, wonderful movie. It's a Jim Jarmusch film, and it was a Palm Dog winning film. It was named. Its title is Patterson, starring Adam Driver. It's such a good movie. Such a good movie. And if you haven't seen it and are not sure about it, show up, because Adam Driver is wonderful. It's a really, really funny movie, and I don't think that you will be disappointed for showing up that night. It's one of my favorite films of all time. So that starts at 6 p.m. Be aware of that. Wednesday night it starts at 6 p.m. The movie is a little bit long. It's close to 2 hours or so, 2.5 hours, maybe not 2.5, but it's over 2 hours long, so please be aware of that. It's at 6 p.m. Wednesday night, April 23rd. And then we have the keynote poet on Thursday, April 24th, and that is going to be Jeff Cass, the author of Teacher Pizza Guy, which was a 2 books, 2 community read several years ago, 5 years ago actually. I know that simply because that's when I started here at the library, and he was here. But he has his new collection of poems coming out called True Believer, and those poems delve into the origin stories of Marvel superheroes. So I'm really excited to hear him read as well. Friday, I'm going to go through the whole schedule, and Friday we have Cindy Hunter Morgan, who's going to be here. She is a Michigan notable author. Her book, Harborless, was a Michigan notable book, and she's going to be doing a poetry workshop at 10 a.m. on Friday, April 25th. You do have to register for that, so I do recommend that you go and do that. I haven't checked the registration to see if it's full yet, but just a little hint that if you show up and you're not registered that morning, they'll probably let you in anyway. But anyway, so that's 10 o'clock on Friday, April 25th, 10 to 12 in the Shirus room upstairs. Then we take about a half-hour break. And then we come down here into the community room, and Cindy also runs a wonderful film festival called Filmetry, where she pairs filmmakers with poets and poems, and she just concluded her Film at Tree Festival, I think last week or the week before, right at the beginning of April. And she's going to be bringing several of the short films that the filmmakers made for this year for that, and we're going to be screening them right here in the community room. And as far as I know, they did choose one of my poems, so I'm both excited and a little apprehensive about watching these films. But they should be really wonderful, and that starts at 12:30 right here in the community room, and there will be free popcorn for that one. Let's see. On Saturday, we have the Teen Poetry Reading Contest winner ceremony, and that's Saturday, April 26th at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then we take about an hour break. And then we start at 1 p.m. with the readings from the 3-day chapbook international 3-day chapbook contest winners. One of the winners will be here in person, and then two of those winners are going to be joining us via Zoom. So that starts at 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. On Saturday, April 26th. And then last but not least, we have the Great Lakes Poetry Afterglow event, which is on Sunday, April 27th, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Rippling River Resort. And there will be several poets, recognizable names and faces. Gala Mahlerbe, who you'll be hearing from tonight, is going to be there. Ronnie Ferguson, Troy Graham is going to be there, reading poetry and singing and performing. And then I will probably read a few things as well. So that is what we have coming up in the next week and a half or so. And then after that week and a half is done, I will be taking a large nap. Okay, and we do have May's schedule out, but I do want to highlight one more event that's happening this week. If you are a fan of jazz, we have the MSHS. Why do I always mess that up? The Market Senior High School Jazz Band is going to be here performing starting at, I believe, 6:30 p.m., 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., right here in the community room. That's usually a very crowded event, so we do have an overflow room upstairs in the Shirus room where you will also be able to watch that event from if you get here a little late and they don't have room for you. But do come. They are really talented young musicians, and you won't be disappointed if you show up for that. It's a wonderful, wonderful evening every year. So it is my honor to introduce our first reader. It was by coin toss that Milton Bates is going to be going first. Most of you know Milton Bates, and are familiar with his works. He's published many collections, chapbooks, and he's a retired professor and specializing in Wallace Stevens. So you could talk to him about Wallace Stevens if you are interested in Wally. I call him Wally. Anyway, but what I can tell you about Milton Bates is he is one of the most gracious, giving, and just one of the best poets that I've ever dealt with when it comes to giving advice for how to make your poems better, but also making you feel really good as a poet and a writer. He really is the epitome of what I think a writer and, maybe a UP Poet Laureate should be, because he is an advocate for poetry with everything that he does and in his work. And I think that you're going to find his poems beautiful, moving, and also funny at times as well. So please welcome to the stage my good friend, Milton Bates.
Well, thank you, Marty, for that warm introduction. It's a contrast to what I experienced when I got up at 5:30 this morning and looked out the window and saw how cold it was, how dark, it was drizzling, and I thought to myself, nobody is going to show up for this reading tonight. So you're here to prove me wrong in numbers, so I'm very pleased with that outcome. Otherwise, I would have to say the only creature that would show up, this time of year under these conditions would be a salamander. So I thought I would start with a salamander poem. You may recall a few years ago, we had in Marquette some salamander days to celebrate this little creature that migrates each year from the higher ground at Presque Isle Park down to the ephemeral ponds, where it takes care of starting the next generation of salamanders. And we had even salamander beer, seasonal beer from Black Rocks, and the occasion even attracted the attention of the Washington Post, which wrote an article about salamander days in Marquette, Michigan. So this is a poem whose point of view is important. It's not about salamander days, it's about salamander nights. What was all the fuss about, he wondered, that drizzly April night in Presque Isle Park? So much commotion and noise, so many restless bodies on the wide asphalt river. Though stiff from cold and blinded by light beams, he stayed on course over pavement and snow crust to the party at the bog. How they would admire his sky blue spots, his midnight-colored skin. That poem is one of the spring poems in the collection, which is organized in the first section by season. So it really goes through the seasons in the Upper Peninsula, looking at the animal life, the people, the plant life, pretty much all aspects of what it means to live in the UP. And each of them is introduced, each of these 4 seasons is introduced by a sequence of haiku, so that provides division markers. I'd like to read one more from the spring section, and then I'll probably move on right to the end of that section of the book. This particular poem is called Symbiosis, and it actually tells a story which, believe it or not, is true, although you might have your doubts after you hear it. But I'll read it and you can see what you think. She's a red fox, a red so muted she's barely visible at dusk and dawn when she leaves her kits under a neighbor's shed to hunt and forage. Before sunrise one spring morning, I placed a mousetrap complete with mouse outside my door to be emptied later in the woods. Later, it was gone. One day passed, another. On the 3rd day, it reappeared where I'd left it, minus the mouse. I understood the vixen's proposition. Leave me a full trap and I'll return it for a refill. Can you trust a creature known for its cunning, no contract or handshake? Perhaps you can when both sides benefit. She'd get a quick snack for her pups and save me a trip to the woods. Rather than risk my mousetrap, though, I tweaked our arrangement slightly. She still finds mice outside my door, but they're no longer served on trap. Okay, I'm going to jump to a couple of poems that are about 2 of my favorite things besides poetry, and that is bird watching and fishing. And the first of them is about fishing on Lake Superior, but the bird is the center of attention, as you'll see. It's called To a Tiny Flycatcher. You found us in the fog offshore, trolling for lake trout, our boat slowly unzipping the silky surface. You arrived as though expected, as though our party was incomplete without you. You troll in your own way, flying sorties into the haze of insects that hover just above the water. We hold our breath when your wings beat against the lake like a moth at the window. Will it suck you under this time? It never does. You return to your roost on a rod tip, shake out your raincoat, and bob to the pulse of the trolling spoon. Suppose that rod were suddenly to register the violence of unseen life. Would it whip you forever from our sphere? We'll find out if a Laker strikes. Meanwhile, we're blessed to have you as companion and figurehead, the visible genius of a vast invisibility. So that's Lake Superior, but a very different part of the world along the West Coast. My wife and I, when we were living in California and I was doing graduate work at Berkeley, whenever we had a chance, we would get our backpacks out and we would go into the Sierras or the Cascade Mountains and spend some time just hiking the trails. And of course, I never ventured into that backcountry without a fishing rod. So this poem is called Chosen. Can you choose your totem, or does it choose you? In the Cascades that spring, mine chose me as surely as my parents chose my name. The sun had cleared the snow from a campsite on Jakey Lake, but wouldn't linger long. I shrugged off my backpack, jointed up a fishing rod, and hustled to a pool of twilight bordered by snow and jack pines. A fallen tree served as dock, inclining toward deep water. Again and again I cast, my line catching light like spider filament. That's all it caught, or so I thought, until I felt the bird alight, its brancusi form familiar on my boot, a red-breasted nuthatch. With tentative beak, it tapped first the rivet on a lace hook. No insect eggs or grubs detained it there, so up my leg it climbed, solving with its toes the mystery of blue denim bark. My jacket may have felt less peculiar underfoot, its wool like moss or lichens. Where to next? The climber seemed to ask when perched at last on my shoulder. I could see my face reflected in the minuscule black bead of its eye. Then, answering its own question, it flew off in search of more productive trees. I turned back toward camp, my trout pool drowned in darkness. Can you feel at once diminished and exalted, no bigger than a bird's eye, yet larger for that eye's election? I'd caught what I needed there, and wished my totem equal luck in foraging. Quite a few of the poems in this collection address issues that appear in the national or even international news, and I work with those not to necessarily protest or to challenge the what's going on, but simply to see what kind of poetry is possible in the subject matter. This particular one is one you'll be able to identify the speaker by the title, is called Mona Lisa Responds to Latest Attack. Now the attack in being considered is one of a whole series of attacks against major paintings by Van Gogh, Vermeer, and then, of course, Leonardo. I'm missing at least one. There were several of these, and they were mounted by a consortium of different groups based in Belgium, many of which had different political programs, but they all chose the same method of voicing their objection, which was to go into an art gallery and somehow assault the paintings. I guess that was supposed to help somehow. This particular one occurred in Paris, January 28th, 2024. You ask whether the incident altered my smile, reshaped it even briefly to the O of horror in Munch's The Scream. That might have happened were I as young and naive as the two jeunes femmes who splashed my face with soup. But I've endured worse, jostled in Leonardo's saddlebag on our journey from Italy to Amboise, kidnapped from the Louvre and kept 2 years, attacked with acid, rock, razor blade, cream cake, and teacup. With each assault, oddly, I've become more distant, more mysterious, and yes, more famous. I am art, worshipped alike in contemplation and the desperate theatrics of those who crave attention to themselves or their cause. Who remembers them? Behind my shield of bulletproof glass, I smiled as they took the vandals away. An issue that at the time I wrote the poem a couple of years ago wasn't at all controversial, but has become so because of events of the past few weeks, is about the DNA testing service 23andMe. It is going through bankruptcy proceedings right now and is up for sale. And as some of the attorneys general of various states in the U.S. thought this through and realized that all of that data belonging to people would be shared with who knows whom, they recommended that people who had accounts with 23andMe would delete their accounts, which I did, because you never know who's going to buy that material. So this is a poem that uses that DNA testing service to explore some ideas about, well, you'll see what it's about. So here goes. There's a reference throughout to a seer. This would be a fortune teller. Here is what the seer told me, reading the strands of my DNA like tea leaves. You can probably smell asparagus in your urine. Check. But you may not be able to match musical pitch. Check. Your genome is Northwestern European with a bit more Neanderthal than average. Your paternal ancestry includes Bourbon kings. Your maternal, a woman buried as a Viking warrior. She mentions no spiritual lineage, leaving me to wonder how I'm related to Zoroaster, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha. They descended like me from an Adam and Eve in East Africa, though Jesus may be a special case. As Son of God, he claimed a chromosome with no precedent or recorded issue. The Neanderthal in me wants to know why those godly messengers showed up so late. They swam in a film no thicker than an oil slick on the deep well of human history. Entire species like us had gone extinct before they arrived. The seer bends closer to the tea leaves. I see no future for your haplogroup, she says, frowning at the damaged strands and dead-end variants. But now you have religion to ease your mortal passage, not to mention the chocolate ice cream that most in your group prefer to vanilla. see, I want to be sure I save enough time for Gala. Yeah, I think I'll have to pass on a couple. This is, I guess you'd call it, Marty used the term, I believe, ekphrastic, or was it Gale? I think it's Gale mentioned the phrase ekphrastic, which means a poem that comes from a work of art or a photograph or a painting. And this happens to be one that is a reproduction of a painting. We couldn't afford the real thing, above our bed. So the title is The Picture Above Our Bed. When did our sleek whitewater kayaks become that wooden rowboat, calloused with old paint, like the one my grandparents kept at their cottage? It floats on water without a ripple, unlike the torrents we paddled each spring. We wore wetsuits and helmets, stowed our lunch in dry bags. The couple in the painting are dressed for a proper déjeuner, she in skirt and blouse, he in white shirt and gallus trousers. Broad-brimmed hats shade both faces. Their picnic hamper no doubt contains a tablecloth, long-stem glasses, and bottle of wine. How quaint they seemed when we hung the picture 40 years ago, never suspecting we would become their peers. We've come to admire their teamwork. He steadies the boat with oars to port and starboard as she leans over the transom, reaching for a water lily. Will she ever pluck that blossom? We hope not. Now that we've caught up with them, we want him to keep their craft upright, her to keep on reaching. Okay, and I'm going to close with. I might have one bonus poem. No hurry? Oh, okay. Thank you. You sure you really want this? Okay. You may have wondered if you've looked at the book, which I think Kelsay Books did a beautiful job on. This is a publisher that specializes mostly in poetry, located in Utah. And it features a fern in the spring when the leaves are just unfurling. They haven't completely flattened out yet. And the title of the book is Undivided Attention. So this is the poem from which both that illustration and the title come. So I'll read that, and then if we have a bit longer, I'll read one more. The title is also the first line. My eyes, those two candles, light less each year. Will they gutter out and leave me in the dark? I don't know. Yet their gradual dying has this advantage. To see something as though for the last time is to see it for the first time. Tight spirals of fern unfurling in spring, for instance, or neural networks of lightning on summer nights. In the firstness of final sight, the world lights up like the face of one who, grown used to being overlooked, has at last your undivided attention. Okay, and let's see. I passed on a couple. I'll read one more just to... I'll read this one because it ends us on a little bit lighter touch. It's entitled Born to be Wild, and you may recognize that as the title of a 60s song by Steppenwolf, which became the soundtrack for the film Easy Rider. So if you have images of Dennis Hopper and his crew, Jack Nicholson, Peter Fonda, on their road trip down to New Orleans, you've got the right image for this poem. Although the cast of character, singular, may be a little different. But it's sort of a true story, and it takes place right in our backyard. We rarely saw Mrs. Sari after she broke her hip. Mending kept her indoors most of a Michigan winter. When she reappeared in spring, she was steering a walker with wheels and handbrakes down her driveway. The wheels chattered unsteadily on gravel, but she didn't dare try them on the highway that bordered her front yard. Things got worse that summer when the county replaced the old bridge over Campo Creek. Concrete barriers arrived to shunt traffic onto a makeshift bridge. Then a crane with wrecking ball chugged into place beside Mrs. Sari's mailbox. Now her home looked like a one-house city under siege. "You won't believe this," my wife said one morning, looking out our front window. I thought she meant the wrecking ball at first, lit by a sunrise that seemed to welcome the new planet to our solar system. Then, beneath the ball, I saw a tiny figure on the stretch of pavement close to cars. Mrs. Sari gripped the handlebars and leaned into her machine as though taking a headwind full in the face. 10 yards north and turn. 10 yards south and turn. She wasn't going far, but she was going fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Milt. Let's give Milt one more big hand here. So before I introduce Gala, I do want to make an announcement, since there are probably poets watching and there are probably poets in the audience. The application process for the next UP Poet Laureate opened today. It runs from April 14th to May 14th. So if you are interested in that position, just visit the UP Poet Laureate Foundation website, and you can find out all that information. So anyway, I want to say a few things about my friend Gala. The first time that I met Gala was, I want to say almost 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. And I remember the first time I met her because I had just become UP Poet Laureate, and I came to a meeting of the Marquette Poets Circle, and Gala came in late, which is not unusual for Gala, She came in late and she sat down, and it was during the sharing section where we were reading poems, and Gala, most of you who know her know that Gala's kind of quiet when she's sitting there, and so I was sitting there and waiting for her to start reading, didn't know what to expect, and she pulled out a book that she had just put together and started reading poems, and just blew me away with her imagery, and I just can't explain it. It was sort of a revelatory night of meeting this new poet that I had never even met before. And I am privileged to say that she has become one of my best friends. She's my writing buddy on mornings. She has, I'm not proud of this, but I even locked her upstairs on the roof of the library one day when I forgot about a meeting, and I had to, and she sat up there and baked in July sun for almost 40 some minutes while I was at this meeting, and then I came back up. So, but every poem that she writes is a jewel and comes straight from the heart. So please welcome to the stage my good friend Gala Mahlerbe.
I don't remember very much about that, but
Heat stroke. It's called.
well, I remember that. I just don't remember reading from a beautiful book that I just wrote. I think you made that up in your mind. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming. And thanks for all the poets in the room for all their support and inspiration and helping me keep writing. So my book is, I think Milton and I are good together because we have this whole, nature theme going on with the organization. So I was really excited when it finally came to me how to organize my book. The metaphor is all related to trees. And I don't think I have time to go through the whole science lesson of all of the different chapters, but I do get pretty excited thinking about it because it helped me to find, how this book was organized, which BG told me I would figure out, and I did, after having like hundreds of titles, on my bedroom floor, and then they all finally came together. So I'll just say the name of the section that I'm reading from, and then I'll read through some poems from that section. So the first section I'll read from is called Sapling. Our Lake. I can still hear the wail of loons in the calm air of early morning, feel the heat of late July after dinner, the flood of sunlight on our eastern shore, staining our faces golden. I see the dome of endless stars, bats swooping, flashlights at the command of small hands, scanning the shallows for crayfish. As we huddle around the last embers of a fire, no one wants to leave. I can still see Uncle Rick bounding out, fully clothed, diving into the lake just to make us laugh. I feel my grandmother's hands on my scalp, dividing and weaving my lake-damp hair into braids. I smell our pine bough forts, feel the sting of cuts on my palms from picking bracken fern, see my father's silhouette in his boat, his hand on the motor at sunset as he heads out, a trail of silver rose ripples in his wake. This table, honey-colored, oval, worn vanilla at its edges. How many times have we sat here? Grade school mornings, Mom and Dad in their spots, my sisters and I bleary-eyed, pawed at oatmeal while Dad, already showered, read the paper in his robe, and Mom sliced shredded wheat with her spoon, pop of toaster, smell of coffee, local news on the radio. My dad's squeal when the cat climbed his bare leg, the morning we lingered, took turns tossing a plastic milk ring around the knob of the sugar bowl. Before dinners, we held hands and prayed, thank you, thank you, thank you, God, for our family, friends, and food. Amen. At this table, we prepared homemade pizzas, rolled out Christmas cookie dough, spread newspapers to color eggs, carved pumpkins, cleaned blueberries, strawberries from the field, celebrated birthdays with Betty Crocker cakes, counted candles, played games, Uno, Hearts, Clue, Pictionary, oh heck. On special Sundays, we sat long hours around this table when grandparents came to visit with coffee cake or donuts. We hunched over homework late into the night, designed Halloween costumes, laid out sewing projects, folded laundry. At this table, we gathered for holiday dinners with a card table extension, fancy tablecloths, special dishes, and silverware from the hutch. This table, our table, how many times have we sat here? And the next section is called Nurse Logs, which, if you know anything about nurse logs, they are the dead, beautiful, moss-colored trees that are supporting all of the new life. So every poem in this section, the person in the poem is no longer alive, but they're still obviously influential. This one is about my Grandma Larson. Alleluia Chorus. Grandma Dorothy listened to the recording every Easter, the last 28 Easters a widow in her home on Maple Street. It was a ritual for her, this woman who grew up without a mother, laced her own boots every Sunday morning, walked the 6 blocks to the Lutheran church, took her spot in the pew beside her father and 7 older siblings, stood at attention in that dim sanctuary, watched with unblinking eyes for Santa Lucia to appear in the aisle like a cherub, her crown of candles, that holy flicker, as organ pipes sang the procession. In her last decade, Dorothy could no longer get to church, sing in the choir, so she filled her living room with Handel's oratorio, joined the sopranos as baritones, tenors, and trumpets echoed scripture. This was her celebration, her flickering crown. She lifted her jubilant voice to heaven, and he shall reign forever and ever. I watched with open eyes, saw my grandmother's faith, her holy procession through life. I am not sure what happened all those years ago with the disciples and the cross. I do not know if there was a stone, if it was rolled away to reveal the Son of God risen again. I do know that my grandmother had beautiful blue eyes, that her Bible sat next to her chair, that she bowed her head in prayer. Every Easter I hear her hallelujahs and feel her soft hand in mine. And the next section is called Branches. So to me, that's my nuclear family, my husband and 3 kids. This one is it's a Fibonacci, so it's a shape poem. So I'm going to read it in the shape that it is. I love the way. I love the way. You sometimes hum quietly and skip a little when your heart is light, when your mind is clear, when your breath is deep and long and full of ease, when laughter comes often and we tell each other about our day. Some of the poems I put the age that I was writing about, not the age that I wrote the poem. So this is called An Ordinary Morning, age 28. Our dining room, new to us, adorned with country charm, stenciled geese and hearts, a project of the home's previous owners. It is morning time, the 3 of us out of bed, where we slept a few hours at a time, young at parenting our toddler son between us, his duck fluff hair against my cheek, his small body a puddle of heat. At the table, my husband and I sip coffee, stir oatmeal among that gaggle of stenciled geese. The wide window is a mirror at this hour, reflects our slippered son standing at his toy table, hips leaned forward for balance. He presses colorful buttons, stars, circles, hearts. Bright music fills the room. His hair sways as he rocks side to side, looks up at us in his play. I lift my son into his high chair, button a dinosaur bib around his neck, suction a plastic bowl of cereal to the tray, hand him a wide-handled spoon. I pour myself another cup of coffee, watch the mirror of the window fade as dawn creeps in, paints this day with more light. Ice skating with daughters. This is when the harbor froze like glass. A lake halted mid-breath, Nothing smoother, more solid, more secure than that glossed surface that held us like miracles, like prophets, as we balanced on silver blades, etched spirals, loops, sine waves, into a sunset sky, into the mirror of those moments. Our bodies freed to dance like spilled mercury, our pink cheeks full with living, as we circled again and again around a frozen sun, as if we had wings. One more from this section. Okay, I have to decide. Okay, glitter on my shoes. Prom dress shopping on a Friday evening. I stand outside a row of dressing rooms, my tennis shoes and jeans bejeweled, by those chosen gowns draped heavy on my arm. My daughter slides hanger after hanger on a silver rail. I think of the abacus of moments between us, beads lined up, waiting to be counted. I watch Converse and Chaco-clad feet turn in the low windows of their stalls as satin and silk swirl, tent each casual pair. Among the beloved behind closed doors, my daughter playing dress-up with her reflection. I wait with the others in my normal day costume, their hair silvered like mine, our bodies pouched, wilted by years, a stark contrast to the fresh, curved landscapes of our daughters. Mom? They ask and open their doors just a crack, to let us see them princessed, turn to show us the all of them, as we smooth fabric from torso to hip to thigh, as more glitter escapes as dust. They are beautiful, these daughters, in this shared space of fluorescence and sail racks. We are beautiful, us mothers, as we wait on the other side, not wanting to miss the opening, not wanting to miss the voices of our daughters asking if we are still there. The next section is called Mycelium. I think of it as the section of the book where I am communicating with, where I have a community. And I'm a physical therapist, and I visit people in their homes, or I have for 25 years. So a lot of poetry comes out of seeing people's spaces. So I'll read this one. The Fertile Path. I don't often see patients in the hospice setting, but sometimes I do. The Fertile Path. I have stood in rooms full with living, framed photographs, dusty from years, old oak tables, tattooed with pale half moons where mugs or vases rested too long. I have stood beneath bright ceiling lights, among the flicker of muted TVs, the mayhem and mischief of pets. I have stood among families, stunned with the gravity of moments, hard moments piled behind tired eyes, husked off one by one from their labors of love. I have sensed their hearts quicken to keep up, hold on, try to rescue what cannot be saved. I have stood among the repose of morphine, that brief pause from pain, where death too stands watch, drums weathered fingers in wait. He has a job, yes, but so do I. Sometimes it is simply an adjustment of pillows, a presentation to caregivers on comfort, on the fragility of skin, the little things. Once I called together a team of family members to dismantle and remantle a hospital bed, move it piece by piece from the dark back bedroom to the wide windowed family room. Slowly I slid a sling beneath daughter, sister, friend, raised her with a mechanical lift, offered constant reassurance, lowered her carefully like a seed into the freshly made bed near the windows where July bloomed in greens and golds and summer sky blue, near that old oak table, those dusty frames. I planted her, relaxed and relieved, in that bed her family believed would be temporary. Death would meet her there, gently, in a swirl of loved ones. He would be the one to usher her out of the soil of one life into the next. I have stood in rooms full with living, and yet I know the fertile path of letting go. And the pandemic was very interesting because when I went to the assisted livings, the family members weren't even allowed to visit, but I was. And I found that I was often smuggling things in for people because they would beg me to get them things. Like once I bought a urinal and brought it to a gentleman who just really wanted a little urinal, a little plastic one. But anyway, I also found that I was bringing in some services too. So this is called Dusty Needs Her Nails Clipped. She is not allowed to leave her room, is mostly alone day after day, but she has Dusty, a sprite of a cat she took in back when she lived on the farm. She thinks about the farm often these days, the good times she had there, the chickens she kept, the flowers she tended. When I arrive in my mask, she holds a ribboned wand above Dusty's pounce. A spot of blood seeps through the bandage on her hand. There is no one to clip Dusty's nails. Her daughter is not allowed to visit. I pull my own cat's clippers from my pocket, don rubber gloves. Dusty squirms as I clip each nail. This necessary task. One more thing I smuggle in. Let's see. One poem got lost. I have to read the section. Oh, here. Okay. So then one of the sections is called Roots. So these poems about my dad, because he was not doing very well, but he's doing good now. That's probably why I didn't find it. Okay, so Marty and I were writing in my garden, and he said, okay, you're going to write a poem about looking through a knothole and seeing what you need to see. I pace the space near the bird bath in Suet, hear the distant mumble of lawnmower, the far-off chorus of seagulls near the lake. I walk to the long... I think I just need to take a deep breath. Okay. All right, because this is a happy poem. I walk to the long leaning fence, repainted so many times, center my eye over the knothole, see what I so desperately need to see. My dad, he is wearing his Vietnam vet cap, tennis shoes, an orange t-shirt, bib overalls spattered with paint. I see the tape measure in his hand, hear the twang of metal as it bends in its stretch, as he calculates, as he stoops to calculate and consider. He marks a 2x4 with a wide, flat pencil, the way he taught me when I was 7, 6 feet 2 and 5/8 inches. He works the tools like instruments. The saw screams its quick cut. I hear the knock of board on board before the blade whirs to a stop. I smell the warmth of fresh sawdust. The radio is playing country. His arms are tan, his glasses clouded with dust. My dad works all morning, happy. Okay, so then the last section of the book is called Heartwood. And Heartwood is the center of the tree, and it gives the tree a lot of structure and strength. And I was very interested to learn that it's also the cells of the heartwood are no longer living or functional. So I also thought about the metaphor of, how we are held up from the center, not necessarily by what is still in existence, but by all the things that have existed in our life. Also, when I was writing this book, I was hoping that one of the themes that came through that, as you age in your life, I start to ask myself if I'm living the life the way that I want to. Am I paying attention? Am I really living? So this is the last section, and I'll read a couple out of here, maybe 3. Pulse check. I feel a presence outside the door. It is the world calling to me. I am sure of it. The sweet, delicate fingers of the willow, now blazed yellow, are on my wrist, as if checking my pulse, as if checking to see if my heart is still beating, if I am still living, I mean really living. Because the one true thing is that none of this will last, just as those impossibly yellow leaves collect along the curb, confetti for this season of leaving. We too shall slip away, like golden leaves on the surface of a pond, like a reflection broken by breath or breeze or dusk. I guess this one is similar. The question. The white beam of my headlamp illuminates the rust blush of pine needles, snake of roots, jagged edges of rock. I follow this narrow pillar of seeing step by step, know where I am going, but not how I will get there. All at once, daylight reaches in, its gifts small at first, a few golden leaves, a row of oyster mushrooms, a canopy of autumn glow, a lichen-stubbled cliff flooded in rose light. I turn to see that glory sun rise through the skeletons of pines, feel a rush of air above me, look up, see them, vultures. Wide-winged they plunge and swerve, ride the wind like kites, 7 dark wizards circling. Circling what? What is it that has given itself up to death? Are these sages examining me? Are they asking the essential question, are you living, child? I mean, are you really living? I stand at attention, breathing, nodding, revering these masters of sky. Yes, I am, I reply, as a half moon and a red sun look on. I really am. I'll read one more, and I just didn't want to forget to thank Ronnie Ferguson, who took the time to go through this manuscript with me and encourage me to publish it and publish it for me. So thanks, Ronnie. And Marty for always supporting my creativity and the thousands of others that he supports. So. All right, this one's just kind of fun. The word dust shows up in this book probably 10 times, and I thought about naming it something to do with dust, but everybody said that'd be too bleak, so I did not. Praise to dust. Praise to the dust that clings to my car, tells stories of turkey flock, white-tailed deer, bumpy back roads. Praise to the rear windshield, opaque with the badge of my passing, miles from home, beneath a canopy of old growth, 100 curves into nowhere. Praise to my feet, black with summer bliss, kissed by earth, cooled by grass, toughened by pebbles, and baptized at last by lake. Praise to my house, my shelter unkempt, this winter shell, this nighttime dwelling, I will not go inside, not yet. Praise to dust, to clay, to mud, to footprints on the floor, sand in the bed, sand on my head, ring around the tub, ring around my nails, grit in my teeth, knees to the earth, giving thanks. Thank you. You good?
Thank you, Gala. So Milton, Gala will be selling and signing their books back there. But I did want to make you aware, too, that each of the headline poet and the keynote poet, Kim Blazer and Jeff Cass, will have opening readers as well. And our own Lynn Domina will be the opening reader for Kim Blazer. And our own Ronnie Ferguson is going to be opening for Jeff Cass. So please come back next week and enjoy all of the wonderful poetic things that are going to be happening right here in Peter White Public Library. I know I'm in my crowd here because you're here for poetry. So thank you for coming tonight. Stop by. The boxes are underneath the table over there by the free table. Fill them up and take them with you. The only rule again is that you can't bring them back. I have 2 more cupboards full of books upstairs, but they're not coming down until I get rid of more of those. So please stop by the free table and grab some of those as well. They make great erasure books. You take them. I don't know if you don't even have to be a poet to do this, really. You take the book, you look at a page, and you just block out what you want to keep of the language, and you can make your own poem by just using one of those books. So I am not endorsing defacing books, but it's a really wonderful poetic practice. So why don't you give that a shot as well? Thank you for coming tonight, and hopefully I'll see you next week for the Great Lakes Poetry Festival.